A new sun rises, and as darkness falls, a shooting star blazes across the sky. I kind of feel like the entire fandom saw that shooting star, and we all got the luck contained therein because it's a great debut for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Almost everyone is very pleased or extremely pleased or something like that. It's not perfect. But most of the fandom seems overjoyed with the reaction, results, and so are we. It's the Hedge Knight coming to the big screen, and it's great. There's a lot of direct quotes from the Hedge Knight in this first episode. A lot of things are almost word for word, actual word for word in a few cases. George R. Martin calls it a faithful adaptation. I can definitely see why, having seen this first episode. There is a lot of new dialogue, but they managed to add things without subtracting from the original. It was more like filling in rather than a lot of changes. They certainly leaned into comedy, and that seemed to work. They certainly had a lot of great jokes mixed in. This episode will have a spoiler-free first portion and a spoiler-filled second half, and it will contain Ashaya, Sean, and myself, Aziz. All that and more on this episode of History of Westeros podcast. Hello and welcome, everybody. It's the beginning of a new season of a new show. There's really nothing like a season 1, episode 1, is there? Especially when it goes well. And, well, we've had a good record of those so far. In general, the first episodes have been good. So let's get to it. First, a few scheduling notes first for how we're going to handle this season. We are going to be at our usual live stream TV show spot of 6 Eastern on Mondays. We will occasionally have a preview stream on Friday. We used to do those on Saturday, but they're going to be Friday, and it will be around 5:30 Eastern, so a little before this one. And then right after that, those of you who want more can catch my game streams on Twitch, which are a Dunk and Egg game stream right now. We're doing Dunk and Egg on Crusader Kings 3. They have been specifically put into the game, and it's a lot of fun. We just started it last week, so come join out. Twitch.tv/History of Westeros. Also, very important, very timely, and we very much are looking for your help on this one. Please join the World Science Fiction Society by January 31st to nominate us, History of Westeros, in the best related work. It's our Ragnarok versus the Long Night episode. That's the episode that we're submitting. For $50, you get the packet of everything on the ballot. So many books. There's so many books and a lot of art. Meaning every book that's nominated for best novel, things like that. You also get to do your own nominating and, of course, voting. And if you actually attend Worldcon, which will be in Anaheim this year in 2026, so it's a lot more accessible for a lot of us, you can upgrade your membership then. So once again, everything is in the description, but we would very much appreciate your support to get on the ballot. We'd love to be a Hugo nominee. Ragnarok versus the Long Night. That's that. If you have questions about this episode, you can hit us up live, hopefully, if you're here. But if not, hit us up at westeroshistory@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our socials. We'd love to hear from you on what you liked most, didn't like, favorite performances, Easter eggs, callbacks, things like that. You never know what we missed. And we just want to hear from y'all anyway. We certainly noticed a lot of Easter eggs in this first episode. And at the end of the episode, we will mention a few others that relate to this one. Real quickly, what does spoilers and non-spoilers mean in this case? Non-spoilers means the equivalent book scenes only, and not anything hidden between the lines there. Only the basic carryover. Things that haven't happened yet on screen. We won't talk about the book version of that. So it's pretty straightforward in that regard. In terms of what spoilers includes, well, that includes everything. That means everything in the novel, all the lore, all our theories that we have or don't have, and trailers as well. There's a rest of season trailer that was at the end of the episode, and that had some things in it that we will talk about in the second half.
Can I say real quick about that? I almost feel like if you haven't read the books, you should avoid that trailer. I feel like it gave away too much. I won't get into that, of course, but I would say if you're liking a show and haven't seen the rest of the season trailer, just hold out for the rest of the show. That's my advice.
I agree with that, Sean. Very, very good point. All right, so trivia question, which we will reveal the answer to at the end. Sir Arlen of Pennytree, Dunk's master, fought for Sir Manfred Dondarrion's father. Against what foe? Who did they fight against?
I know this one. I'm pretty sure I know this
All
one.
right. You'll find out at the end if you're right. And a poll, which is live now for those of you watching on YouTube. And if you're catching the episode on Spotify, you can vote as well. Who was your favorite performance, not counting Dunk and Egg themselves? And the possibilities are Daniel Ings, a.k.a. Sir Lionel Baratheon, Sean Thomas and Edward Ashley as a combo. Those were the two Fossaways, Raymond and Stefan. Plumber the Steward, that's Tom Von Lawler. And then our 4 sex workers, Rowan Robinson, Carla Harrison Hodge, Abigail O'Regan, and Ellie McHale Rowe. Now, there's a lot of people in that list just now that have hyphenated names.
For what it's worth, I had to just put the character names because it's way too long to put the actor names in the poll.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Anyway, so that's who they are, but take your pick there, and we'll have more of these throughout the season. Thanks to Corn Emperor for the super chat. Yeah, it is on. You are absolutely right. Let's get going. So the first scene, it very much aligns with the first scene of the book. What we'll do here is have a lot of the quotes that parallel that, and then discuss them, starting with this one. Quote. Oh, yep. We'll take just a second here, actually. I really appreciate the setting on this one, like the visuals. You've got the big mountains in the background, wide open space, and makes it hard actually to tell what a big man Dunk is. There's nobody he's next to. You know, there are only the horses, and he's not really right next to them. So that doesn't really come apparent until he comes up to Egg, which makes it very apparent. Anyway, let's have the quote from the first scene of the book.
The spring rains had softened the ground, so Dunk had no trouble digging the grave. He chose a spot on the western slope of a low hill, for the old man had always loved to watch the sunset.
You learn a lot from that line, and you learn a lot from how Dunk carries himself during this moment. He is taking care. He's doing what Sir Arlen would have wanted. He's, conscientious. He's empathetic even to a dead person, right? And Sean, his first line here is, "I don't have the right words," which really is a really good way to start off Dunk, isn't it?
It is. I had that written down in my notes. That was a great way to frame the show, to set things off. And it also, I got to be careful because I don't want to spoil things, but there is this sentiment, I think, of fans that Dunk isn't that smart. Dunk himself says, he's thick as a castle wall. And maybe because Arlen told him that. And I think George Martin even said that he's not the brightest character he's ever written. However, Martin has written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of characters. You know what I mean? So Dunk could be outside the top 10% and not be the brightest, but that doesn't mean he's dumb. And I have that thought sometimes that Dunk is smarter than he gets credit for. He's smart in I'm going to say, intelligent way as opposed to an educated way. Like, I think his mind is clever enough to figure things out, but he just doesn't have the knowledge of reading or, world experience or whatever else. So maybe combine that with some naivete, and I think we get, Dunk being thought of as unintelligent. But I don't think that's true. I don't think it's fair. But that's why I like this quote so much, because it says, "I don't have the right words." If he had a better vocabulary, he would say something better here, but he just doesn't have a better vocabulary. But he still has, I don't know what word to use exactly, enlightened thoughts, deep emotions, whatever. He just doesn't have the good vocabulary to say them here and in many other spots throughout the series. I
totally agree. I think maybe to put it simply, he doesn't have the right words, but he does the right things.
Oh, nice.
He has emotional intelligence, I think. Right, even if he doesn't, have street smarts or what have you. So, and he tries to say the right things, right? He doesn't, and he's not taciturn. It's not like he gives up on talking. He keeps trying. So that's something you can appreciate about him too. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. How many of us, a day later, an hour later, a week later, realize what we could have said. I'm like, oh, I could have said it that way. I think, I bet Dunk has some moments like that. One interesting thing about this scene, of course, it's raining. Now, that's from the book. But there's very loud wind as well, which I thought was a nice touch, and it fits with the rain. But it also just gives the scene more of a quality, a lonely quality, and I thought that was a nice touch for sure. All right, here is the next part. This is, again, the quote from the book, and you'll see just how similar it is to the show.
"I'd leave your sword, but it would rust in the ground," he said at last, apologetic. "The gods will give you a new one, I guess. I wish you didn't die, sir." He paused, uncertain what else needed to be said. He didn't know any prayers, not all the way through. The old man had never been much for praying. "You were a true knight, and you never beat me when I didn't deserve it," he finally managed. "Except that one time in Maidenpool. It was the inn boy who ate the widow woman's pie, not me. I told you. It don't matter now. The gods keep you, sir."
If you remove the narrator parts from what Ashea just read, it could very much fit on the show. You might not know which it was. If you heard both of them, you're like, well, which was the show and which was the book, This was a pretty effective way to do it, I think. And he's got a lot of emotion in his voice, and it's a solid way to handle a monologue, I think. And the flashbacks were something we were hoping for, somewhat expecting, and it was done interestingly here as a way to punctuate what's a pretty sad moment with some comedy, which is something that the show apparently is going to do a lot of. And we slowed down these flashbacks to see exactly what was going on. And the first two are pretty mundane. He just is standing there with some dirt on his face in the first one. The second one, there's a group of people, standing around. They're all kind of looking at him. Don't really know what he did, but he did something because he...
Opposite order.
Oh, anyway, yeah, regardless, both of them, he doesn't know what's going. He seems to be agreeing that he was guilty. And the third one, there's fire. There's a big fire. Did Dunk start a huge fire? Dunk did start the fire. It was always burnt. Yeah. It was always burning. Yeah, so that's pretty funny. And this is the actual Dunk actor. It's actual Peter Claffey in this one. Whereas the first two scenes, it's his, what's his name? Bamber, yeah.
Bamber Todd. How could you forget Bamber Todd?
Yeah, Bamber
Come
Todd's
on, Aziz.
brother
Come
of Sweeney
on.
Todd.
Yeah.
Or
it's
grandson
Bamber.
of...
That name we all know.
Yeah, name we all know. That's what we've always said about it. Yeah. So the line about living rich for a year or two and where it leads, outlawry or brigandry, that's straight from the book, basically. And I like how in the show, what happens is he says that line, and then he looks over at the shovel and gravesite, and then his face gets very serious, very earnest. He's like, no, I got to do what I was taught. I got to be a true knight. That's the only example he knows. Sir Arlen's his father figure, and he wants to follow in those footsteps. It's what he was taught, and it's a noble calling, and that's why he kind of sifts through those other ideas, and kind of, discards them. City Watch, things like that. He thinks through it, but he's like, no, that's not the path for me. I'm going to follow Sir Arlen's path. I thought that was really well done too. Don't you think so, Sean?
I do. In general, I love this whole opening for a million different reasons, and that's one of them. I thought it was a good, appropriate. What's happening here is Dunk's kind of like choosing his destiny. You know what I mean? Like, what do I do now? And it's almost might be expository in some situation for someone to kind of ponder out loud, what am I supposed to do now? And they give him a little bit of an excuse to talk to the horses. We talked about the idea of how some of his internal dialogue in a show, they'd have to have a way for him to say it. And this is a clever way for him to say it to the horses. But also I want to point out that it's like a natural moment for someone to have an expository moment, right? When you're basically, your father has just died and everything you had is on the horse you ride around. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's time to go back home. What's home even? He doesn't know anyone or anything else. And so having to decide what to do here, and it's kind of neat world setting for him to scroll through different types of ideas, and you even see as he does that, he's kind of naive about him. Just like people in the real world, who the heck, what 17, 18-year-old kid knows what they're really getting into when they go to college and take on all that debt and leave home and their parents and their structure, and suddenly there's alcohol. You know what I mean? Like, even someone who's maybe kind of like Dunk, sort of naive ideas, and going to go to college and learn about mathematical engineering, and instead you go to college and you learn about girls and drugs, or you just don't know what's really out there in the world. And that scene when he pulls a sword, imagining he's in a city watch, stop conducting rape, sir. It's a little awkward and unrealistic because he doesn't actually know what it means to be in the city guard or whatever.
Yeah,
so
he wouldn't know what to say to someone if he did catch them doing that. He'd be like, "What am I?" Right. Yeah, I assume they would train me what to do, but he's just making something up because he's trying it on. It's like he's trying that role on. It's like like an outfit.
And there are things that make sense in some way or another, but the one he chooses is the one that's closest to him. He's been to tournaments before. Arlen is a knight. He wants to be a knight. Knights go to tournaments. This is more along the lines of what he fancies in his mind.
Absolutely.
Also, not really. He's also naive. He's also naive about this thing, even this thing that he should, quote unquote, should know better from the world experience he does have. He still doesn't really understand what he's getting into here.
Yeah. One thing I love about this is that and it kind of comes up later in his conversation with the Laughing Storm, where he's like, "Why are you slouching?" If Dunk understood better about living his own life, his physical gifts, his height, these are qualities that will get him a job. So, yet he is downplaying them. So it's like, no, you should be tall. That's something, it was said as a joke, but it's really true about him. He doesn't realize one of the things his naivete has him believing, or not missing rather. He doesn't know how valuable his size is in the world.
Yeah. Can I say also something, a little deeper thought, going back to the flashbacks of Arlen?
Yeah.
I was really stirred by that because it's something, reading the books, that I would think about a lot, how much Dunk sort of idolizes Arlen, but also how much he references Arlen having hit him. And he so often has this instinct to hit Egg. And that seems like such a dark, awful thing. And, be fair, modern times are different. But I still believe a couple things. One, the showrunners chose to slice those little flashbacks in. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And I think it really kind of brings attention to, I don't know, the abuse, I guess.
It's rough. Yeah.
Maybe the average person would have taken. And maybe it makes him tougher. Maybe Arlen doesn't know better. Arlen wasn't actually his father. He wasn't trained to be his father. Who is? And especially back then, Arlen probably was also beaten by his parents, probably worse than what he's given Dunk. And I think at least one thing here, maybe I'm being kind of, optimistic outlook here, but the Dunk is going to be better than this. The Dunk isn't going to hit Egg. Even when he says something about how Arlen taught me everything he knew, well, as best as he could. I think that's Dunk recognizing Arlen had his own faults.
Yeah.
And I think Dunk doesn't want to have those faults himself. And if he does raise Egg the best he can, as Egg suggested, it won't include actually clotting him in the ear, even when he might deserve it, quote unquote deserve. It's hard for me to think what a child could do that deserves being hit in the head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if an adult robbed a store or called someone an asshole or I don't know, whatever else, you don't hit the adult in the head, right? Why would you treat children worse than adults? I don't know.
Anyway, let's move on. So that is a theme in both book and show, that this upbringing and how it kind of is passed on. And that's really true in A Song of Ice and Fire very much as well. Almost all these characters have very fleshed out backgrounds. You can see how their ancestry affects who they are. Thank you to Matt Fanman 781 for the super chat, who says, "Thank you, History of Westeros, for all your great reviews and discussions." That's right. Hopefully we've got plenty more for you the rest of season. So here is the equivalent moment. We have him pointing his sword out, and this is the quote from the book that you can see pairs up really nicely as well.
He tied the scabbard to a length of hempen rope, knotted it around his waist, and drew the longsword. The blade was straight and heavy, good castle-forged steel. The grip, soft leather, The grip, soft leather, wrapped over wood. The pommel, a smooth, polished black stone. Plain as it was, the sword felt good in his hand. And Dunk knew how sharp it was, having worked it with whetstone and oilcloth many a night before they went to sleep. It fits my grip as well as it ever fit his, he thought to himself, and there is a tourney at Ashford Meadow.
They added a penny to his pommel. That's one difference from book and show, and it's for Pennytree, Sir Arlen of Pennytree. It's a nice touch. It comes up again later when Dunk throws a penny, and you can see it's the same coin, the same kind of coin, not the exact same coin. He doesn't take the coin out of the hilt, but yeah, it's so it's a good visual way to know what's going on, especially because there's at least one other scene where a coin comes up. The first scene after he leaves the site of the grave, as I mentioned before, is the inn, and the first person he sees is Egg, and that immediately demonstrates even more of their height difference. And it's definitely a running thing that there's multiple moments where someone points out how big he is, like Lionel Baratheon does it, and so does Stefan Fossaway. But there's also a bunch of people that in the background that just, while he's walking around the camp doing various things, you'll occasionally see someone pass by and do a double take. So they've added a few extra, like, whoa, just random people noticing him as being tall. And so it's a kind of nice touch there.
And they did a decent job, I think, of positioning him around other people being shorter. Like when he's at the first puppet show, he's a full head taller than the next nearest person around him. And he is tall. Like this actor is like, I don't know, well over 6 feet.
6'5", yeah.
He is, I think he's taller than average in the first place. And it is a somewhat of a phenomenon that actors on average tend to have shorter heights. So he's going to stand out. I know that's like a concern some people had going into this, is that he's supposed to be almost 7 feet tall. This actor's not tall enough. I'm like, he's plenty tall. That's
fine. Yeah.
Especially given the way they can film around him and everything. I think they're representing himself as being the largest man around for sure.
Yeah. And every scene, is never close. Yeah. It's definitely represented visually quite well. I agree with that. And let's see. So when he comes up to Egg, it's funny to consider that, they're not that far apart in age. And Dexter, Sol, and Cell in real life talked about how his neck would be sore because they have to do these scenes over and over, and he's just looking up the whole time, all day long. So there's a couple people in the room. I wrote in my notes that there's only one person in the inn besides the innkeep and her young daughter, but there's one other person besides the passed out, well-dressed man. There's actually one other person. I think there's a bearded guy in the far corner that was kind of leaning on his arm, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Here is the equivalent quote from the book again, which, once again, very similar.
Across the room, the lordling raised his head from the wine puddle. His face had a sallow, unhealthy cast to it beneath a rat's nest of sandy brown hair. And blonde stubble crusted his chin. He rubbed his mouth, blinked at Dunk, and said,
"I dreamed of you."
His hand trembled as he pointed a finger. "You stay away from me. Do you hear? You stay. Oh,
you stay away from me.
How is he?
You stay well away."
No, you gotta do the quote over again.
Do the quote again? Okay. "You stay well away from me." Or, "You stay away from me. Do you hear? You stay well away." I thought slamming down the golden dragon there was a great touch, visual thing there that says a lot. It's already, it's one thing, the way the innkeeper looks at Dunk is like, "Don't you dare interfere with my overpaying customer." This guy's been hanging out for days, just drinking and overpaying. You better not mess with that. Just leave him, That's the way I took it, which isn't how I took it in the book necessarily. And I think that's a really good way to interpret the scene, that she's got this drunk rich guy there and she doesn't want anyone messing with that.
That's another thing. It was like slightly different in the book. There's a few scenes where there's like a little nuance of difference. And this is one of them where I think, if I remember right, in the book, she said something to Dunk along the lines of, in the show, she said something like, never mind him. But in the book, she said, never mind him. All he does is get drunk and talk about his dreams. A little more emphasis on the dreams in the book than there was in the show.
Yeah. So the line both when he asks for food is in the book, and so is "You're big enough for it." That's all there. And of course, after eating, he returns to the stable and finds Egg riding Thunder and scolds him, leading to this exchange. Quote, "I have no need of a squire,"
he said. "Every knight needs a squire," the boy said. "You look as though you need one more than most."
Dexter's delivery on "your belt's made of rope" was A+. It was very much the vibe of how the comic delivery was throughout the episode. And yeah, it's neat. Shay, you have a note here. I think this is your note. Maybe this is Sean's note about that. Kind of dates back to what you were talking about a minute ago, Sean, about being hurt, and how this is a different concern that maybe Sir Arlen didn't have for Duncan.
No, yeah, I was saying that Dunk's reaction, his instant reaction is not, "That's my horse and don't get on that horse," and you're, all these things. His reaction is, "Thunder could kick you. You could be killed. You could be hurt." Like that. That is his concern, despite someone, touching his stuff.
Yeah, well said. I totally agree. Yeah, it's a little sign of his character that says a lot when you key in on it.
And this is something it wasn't until my second watch, a little deeper through, or third watch maybe, that something started to click in my mind, is that I think Dunk is, part of his hesitance to take Egg on is he feels like he doesn't need it, and it's maybe even an offense to imply that he does. You know what I mean? Like, he's been taking care of himself. Why do I need someone to take care of me now? But clearly he needs help. He's got these 3 horses. He barely knows what he's doing. Egg has skills that Dunk doesn't even know, as far as like the heraldry and the knights at the tournament, all this kind of stuff. But you could see there's a lot of reasons Dunk might not want Egg. Like an annoying kid. I don't know who this kid. I can't trust this kid. I don't need anyone's help. All this stuff. But I think part of it is it's a responsibility that he would have to take on. To him, a squire isn't someone there to help you. A squire is someone there for you to help. He thinks like Arlen was the mentor to Dunk. That's what a knight does. That's what a leader, that's the father, whatever. So if I suddenly have a squire, man, I don't even know how I'm getting a tournament. I can't take on the responsibility of a squire. I think that's part of it to him.
I agree. I totally agree.
Feel
yeah.
ready for this.
And that's reflected in the conversation when he says, "You're lad, you're better off, not squiring for the likes of me," or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're saying is the subtext there, and I very much agree. A couple corrections from the preview episode. Dunk actually is well educated on sigils and heraldry. I completely forgot that. It's something that's explicit in the book that Sir Arlen drilled him on it. And I think that was just a story device so that to cover the part that we were saying, so Dunk knows what he's seeing. Otherwise, the story would have some holes because the POV character doesn't know who all these houses are. And that just wouldn't be as good without that information. That said, we don't know that he's very well educated on sigils in the show. He might not be. So we'll see. But just to correct myself from that, another small correction, Medgar Tully, I said that the Lord of Riverrun was dead in this, had died recently, but that's not true. He's an adult. He competes in this tournament. He dies not that long after, though. It's the Mystery Knight I'm thinking of, where there's an 8-year-old Lord of House Tully. So it's only a couple years later. And there. Let's move on to our next part, the Pavilion Under the Stars. Here is the moment Dunk finds his spot from the book. Quote,
On the outskirts of the great meadow, a good half-mile from town and castle, he found a place where a bend in a brook had formed a deep pool. Reeds grew thick along its edge, and a tall leafy elm presided over all. The spring grass there was as green as any knight's banner, and soft to the touch. It was a pretty spot, and no one had yet laid claim to it. This will be my pavilion, Dunk told himself, a pavilion roofed with leaves, greener even than the banners of the Tyrells and the Estermonts.
There's a clue right there with the heraldry. He's like, greener than the banners. He's immediately thinking of banners when he thinks of greener things. So, yeah, in the show, this is, of course, all visual. But when he comes upon that elm tree, he has a big smile on his face. He's like, oh, yeah, he recognized that's what I want. That's for me. It's the perfect kind of tree for a man who has to sleep under trees. It's the best kind of tree, and that's part of why it ends up on his shield. So the show is pretty careful to give us lots of visual moments of the Hedge Knight lifestyles. In the book, there's similar things, but it's communicated differently visually. Obviously, there's that beginning part to the show where he starts relieving himself when the original theme music starts playing. Yeah, it's meant to be kind of a crass joke, but it is also a reminder that this guy has to eat crappy food all the time. His stomach is probably going to get upset very often. Like, this is the equivalent of eating gas station food like regularly. Actually, something worse than that. Worse than gas station food regularly. You always say, don't eat the gas station food. I was like, well, he has no choice. He has to eat worse. So
at least gas station food has caffeine.
And there's this line I'll read myself. He beat his tunic and breeches against the trunk of the elm to knock off the worst of the dirt and don them once again. I mean, we saw that straightforwardly, with just the added touch of the comedy of him smelling his own clothes and going, ugh, so they add some humor to that, because otherwise, yeah, it's just like, man, this guy's life is hard, and you don't want to just get sunk into that and just be feeling bad for him all the time. No, the show has a more upbeat vibe than that. You can tell that things are gonna go better for this guy in the long run. Like, he's not the main character to be tortured and suffer the whole way through. No, I mean, no, he's generally going to persevere and have good things happen. Bad things will happen along the way, but yeah, I mean, he's the main character.
I want to point out also, like, I'm sure there's just ad nauseum discussion going on about the opening poop, but I do think, in addition to whatever kind of humor they were trying to get out of it, and maybe referencing, the bigger story, I think it had some value to kind of point out to us that this is, like, maybe from a tone standpoint, that this show is a little bit lighthearted, but also from a POV standpoint,
yes.
Right? When you think of I love Game of Thrones, and how we're disappointed the ending or whatever. I think the first seasons are great. The books are great. So I don't want to sound too negative when I say this, but it just is a different perspective when you have, like, stoic Ned Stark and brooding Jon Snow pondering their futures as the leaders in the realm. Dunk's just some guy on the road. You know what I mean? It's just a different story. And these grand ideas that he starts to have, that the music swells in to remind us of the grandness of Game of Thrones, which, incidentally, the music of this show is not as grand, right? Like, they immediately cut that short, remind us, no, he's just a dude. He's not the heir to the throne. He's not some lord's son. He's not fighting some Game of Thrones, right? He's trying to not starve. That's his life, Yeah. He's trying to maybe find some meaning, some role, some home, but he's not trying to find some throne or some inheritance. It's just a different story being told. And I think the music in general is doing that well, right?
Yeah.
This kind of full orchestral, big royal sound.
It's not epic.
A little bit more like minstrels at a festival. It's like a guitar sound and a light, hollow sounding music.
We've got a little bit of a section on the music coming up, so I'll comment on that a little bit more later. But I totally agree. The vibe for the music is very fitting. One other, at least small detail I thought was nice to include that reflects the difficulty of his station and living day to day was how many times did he swat at a mosquito? It was at least 4, maybe as many as like 6 or 7, but it kept happening. A couple
of those might have been flies or gnats and not mosquitoes.
Sure. Bugs, yeah.
Maybe not fleas, because we're outside of flea bottom.
Oh, yeah. When Dunk returns, we'll skip all the way ahead to the final scene. We'll just do all the scenes that are at the pavilion, so to speak. The conversation is, again, almost straight from the book. In fact, Dunk and Egg's lines are probably the least changed. Their exchanges overall are, at least so far, the most straightforward from the book, that's pretty nice. Because that's really, really well written lines that don't need much change, if any. So, just like his delivery on the rope belt, "that's a tree" was was really good. In the book, it said he's unimpressed, by the tree. And in both cases, he says trees leak, and in both cases, Dunk laughs a bit, and he's like, "Yeah." And is it short for Duncan? That was really well done. He's like, yeah. And how good was it when he stood up straight to say, "Duncan the Tall"? He did the Superman pose there as he realizes who he's going to be. And that's part of what you're saying, Sean. The beginning of the episode, he's like, who am I? And he kind of he sort of takes another step to his identity there, doesn't he?
Yeah. That was in the book, by the way. That scene, I feel like this was so well, I don't know, written, edited, directed, performed, because in the book, that was a little internal monologue. It's like a little paragraph of thought went through Dunk's mind. He was like, Dunk, yeah, that doesn't sound like Sir Duncan of, I guess, Pennytree? That's where Arlen's from, but I'm not really from there. He goes through all this, and how, in the real world, your mind can flicker through a whole series of thoughts in a split second. And then finally he spits out Sir Duncan the Tall. But here we see that thought. We don't hear, right? In the book, his thoughts are written down for us to read. But here it comes out through his acting, through how the camera holds on him, how his facial expressions look. Kind of slightly opens his mouth at one point, looks down, and then we had this added context that wasn't in the book. Of when Lionel Baratheon tells him, "Be tall."
He was slouching.
"God gave you this gift. Don't be a heretic." Right.
He was absolutely slouching.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the internal dialogue that Dunk was having with himself here that wouldn't have been in a book was, what did Lionel tell me? I think that was be who you are, accept the gift the gods gave you. So, yeah. I love that moment on multiple levels.
One of the only times Egg smiles is when Dunk is telling him what kind of lifestyle they'll have, and as it gets worse and worse, Egg's smile gets bigger. He's like, "Really? Hard salt beef? Sleeping on the ground? Yes, my lord. No. I'm only a hedge knight." And that almost was could have been the final scene, the last line, but they have to do the shooting star scene. They can't just do that at the beginning of next episode. That's the real ending of the episode, and it's really well done. And this is a perfect example of a scene that was entirely in Dunk's head that they adapted really well to be dialogue. I like how it played out. Dunk thinks he's being mocked. He's like, "Yeah, enough with the I don't have a pavilion thing," But then he's like, "Oh wait, you're saying Egg? Yeah." So anyway, when the luck is ours alone, he finally figures it out. Egg smiles. Cool. So, super sat from Sam Jensen. Loved the first episode so much. Almost as excited for your guys' review as I was for the episode. Cheers to the rest of the season. So we have a note here. Shay is keeping track of what's going on in the chat, and she says no one cares about the spoiler being a spoiler free. It's full of spoilers in the chat. So okay, we won't hold back on spoilers. If any of you do care about spoilers, well, I'm sorry, you're in the very small minority, and there's just not enough of you. So we'll go ahead and go with spoilers.
Maybe some egregious spoiler we saved till the second half since we announced it at the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. We won't worry about it too much. And we're ready for the next section. Plumber the Steward. Here's another great example of a scene that is really close to word for word, especially at the start. I love how even the description is perfectly matching to what we see in the scene. Quote.
Men-at-arms in orange and white livery stood outside the gates with halberds, watching people come and go, seemingly more intent on joking with a pretty milkmaid than in keeping anyone out. Dunk reined up in front of the short, bearded man he took for their captain, and asked for the master of the games. "It's Plumber you want. He's steward here. I'll show you." Inside the yard, a stable boy took Sweetfoot for him. Dunk slung Sir Arlen's battered shield over a shoulder and followed the guard's captain back of the stables to a turret built into an angle of the curtain wall. Steep stone steps led up to the wall walk.
Yeah, just to harp on this a little more. I was really struck how exactly it followed. He rides up. There's the 4 men in orange and white livery joking with the milkmaid. He doesn't actually say it's Plumber you want. They skip the line, but the stable boy takes Sweetfoot. There's a narrow staircase up the turret. It's exactly the same. And then when he walks in, Dunk bumps his head in the show. That doesn't happen in the book, but the same first line happens, which is, "What do you want, man?" And then from there, it's a mostly similar conversation. There's the added bit about the Ashford chairs for more comedy. But the line, "A sword it is for a certainty," is there. And there's a visual joke when he says, "What's your name?" And he says, "Dunk." He's actually dunking his bread into his cup when he hears that. He's like, "Dunk, you say?" He's dunking.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell if maybe he was doing it in response, as though Dunk had told him to do that. It's like, "Okay, yeah, I will."
So that was pretty funny. So just like in the book, he pulls no punches. He's very blunt and straightforward about the situation, but he's empathetic to Dunk. By the end of the scene, he's kind of, well, it's a recurring thing that happens. Dunk is so earnest and wholesome that people are disarmed by it. Because in this world, everyone expects people to want something from you. Or you're up to something. You're after something. Who are you really? But and that's how people expect you to be. And then Dunk, throughout the dialogue, they're realizing, wait, this guy isn't like that, is he? And so it is disarming. So then they sympathize with him, and that's how a lot of things go his way because of that reaction, and people treat him like a good person because they recognize him as a good person, and that is a very rare thing, and that means something to them.
I will say they have to recognize him as a good person and also have some good in themselves too.
Sure, good point. Yeah.
And I that is a point I wanted to make, is that this scene was very, very similar to the book, but as you said, toward the end, it started to shift a little, and that main shift was that Plumber was a little bit more empathetic, as I think you said. That's probably the best word. In the book, it ended with more like, "Be gone," go riddance to you. But in this one, it's more like, "Good luck. I hope to see you again."
Yeah. Even in the book,
seemed a little more genuinely wanted to help Dunk. And
yeah. Even in the book, he tells him how he can get it done. He's like, "Well, if you can find someone that will vouch for you, then you're good. But other than that, yeah." But I agree with you totally. So here's a notable moment from the conversation that relates back to the first scene and has some extra meaning to it. We'll say, quote, "Were there any witnesses to your dubbing?"
Only a robin up in a thorn tree. I heard it as the old man was saying the words. He charged me to be a good knight and true, to obey the 7 gods, defend the weak and innocent, serve my lord faithfully, and defend the realm with all my might. And I swore that I would.
And that's almost word for word what he says in the show as well. He does see a robin in a tree. That's not something we get from the book. It's we get the visual of him seeing a tree.
Proof that Dunk is a true knight. We see the robin.
So we remember what Dunk was actually doing in that moment. He was unburdening himself there. And when Plumber pushes him, he's like, "Who were there any witnesses?" He starts talking about how it was raining, which it was not raining, but it was raining when he buried him. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, it wasn't raining earlier when he got knighted and the robin saw it. It just started raining later. Of course.
Yeah. Hat tip to listener Kelly Lowe, who pointed a lot of this out, how looking at the bird, parallels looking at or how he tells it in the story, rather.
Yeah, there was a bird there when he decided he should be knighted.
Yep. It's the robin, perhaps, who actually knighted him. So there's
Braves to Robin.
Yeah, Braves to Robin. What a great lead in, because I was about to say how many Monty Python type jokes there were in this episode. There's really a quality that it seemed to have. But I think the most Monty Python-ish line was in this scene where he's like, "No, I'm messing with you. I'm bullshitting you, man. What do you think? There's a scourge of cottagers scuttling about entering tourneys?" He's like, what a ridiculous problem to think we would have, yeah, farmers are sneaking in there so they can get plowed down by Sir Lionel. I remember that's a great line. It's like, that would be a different sort of entertainment. Yeah.
And it was that makes me think about the idea of why this guy kind of has his guard up, and some of the other people Dunk interacts with too. Like later we see it with Lionel Baratheon, right? Like people kind of expect you to have some angle, and especially at a tournament for this guy trying to run the tournament. Just think of the different responsibilities he has, probably just normally, right? He's the steward of Ashford, so he's got to make sure like everyone's got their meals ready, and the horses are fed, and the fires are kept, and all the different kind of managerial expectations on him are suddenly amplified by 1,000 at this tournament. And a lot of it is going to be, knights and royalty, nobles of sorts that
demanding people,
treatment. Right. They expect a certain respect. They expect certain facilities and equipment and demands to be met, and to get it immediately and with utmost respect, and da-da-da-da. So this guy's putting up with all that. But also, there probably are some people trying to get over it. There probably are some people angling to join the tournament who are really just robbers, like former hedge knights that did turn to the wrong side of the law, who are trying to disguise their real personality, or maybe people who are trying to pretend they're knights just so they can put their horse in a stable and get it fed, even though they're not a knight and they're not in you just imagine all the angles people might be trying to get over on Plummer. And so he probably has seen it before.
Yeah,
right?
You're
so
right.
he
Yeah.
did this little story he tells Dunk. He's like, think how bad it would be if some farmer came in here. Like, he's trying, on some level, he doesn't want to completely be mean and dismissive of Dunk. But also, he can't abandon his responsibilities. Like, look, I can't let people put themselves in this dangerous situation. I can't let Lord Ashford be embarrassed by thieves and incompetent fools getting in this tournament. You understand, right? You get it, right? And Dunk's like, yeah, I get it. It was humorous, but also, again, empathetic. I think that it's interesting the way he presented his defense to Dunk. He mean to him.
It's like, this is bad for everyone. If
Right.
you're not the right man, it's good. It's bad for Lord Ashford. It's bad for me. It's bad for you. Yeah, no one wants this. And this is really important because there is an undertone here. There is a subtlety here because some of this is bluster. It's not, but not. But he explains why. He tells Dunk why the rules are as the way they are for this tournament, which is there are princes about. And he doesn't fully explain what that means, and Dunk is definitely not worldly enough to know what that means exactly. But what it means, we find out later in the book. It's, for example, Valar, most of all, Prince Valar, he fights weak opponents. His opponents give up easily. They're doing all sorts of things to make him look good. And this is a part of why it would look real bad if Prince Valar lost to a hedge knight. So if there's no hedge knights in the tournament, if no sellswords in the tournament, it couldn't possibly happen. So they're being extra. That's an extra level of security. They're not letting them in just because they're lowborn. It's because there's a potential huge embarrassment. And then Lord Ashford is the one who looks really, really bad too for that. He's like, I brought you here to make you look good, and the opposite happened. So, let's talk briefly about Tanzel and the puppetry. We don't get a whole lot yet. Her role clearly is more for a bit later, but a great introduction. Here's the brief quote from the book on how we see her.
As he ate, he watched a painted wooden knight battle a painted wooden dragon. The puppeteer who worked the dragon was good to watch too. A tall drink of water, with the olive skin and black hair of Dorne.
As great as A Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones casting has been throughout all three shows, they can't always have a perfect match physically, but Tanzel is right down perfect for the description. Yep, olive skin, black hair, tall. Yep, I'll check all three boxes there. And as you said, Sean, this is the scene probably most of all where they emphasize his height. He's really tall. Yeah. They can focus in on him without seeing anyone else's head. Like they're just below the shot. Yeah. I love that. And it was a great choice, I think, as an adaptation move to have her do the narration. That was a great way to introduce her a little more, make her a little more prominent. Great way to introduce the scene.
She's a beat poet.
A beat poet. and the like dragon breathing fire with that apparatus was pretty cool. Like seeing Serwyn in the mirror shield and all. Yeah, it's just nice. Like it's a way to put some of the mythology of Westeros into the story in an organic way.
Can I actually read a couple lines from that scene?
Do it.
because it really struck me, as much as I defend Dunk being a true knight, it really struck me. There was one line right at the end that said, "Should the dragon discover a man in great disguise?" And it was enough that I went back and listened to that whole thing a few more times. And yeah, sure, this is about Sir
Serwyn of the Mirror Shield. Serwyn of the Mirror Shield.
Yeah. The Mirror Shield. But this is also about Dunk. And maybe also about Egg.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple little excerpts where our great hero forges on, leaving all he knows behind. Who does that sound like? A boy from nothing risks it all, ignoring looks askance. Who does that sound like?
Very good.
Perhaps he's only stupid. Great honor his ambition, must keep a truth concealed. What truth? Who's concealing a truth? More than one person here.
Yeah. Nice. That's really good. I didn't catch that at all, Sean.
Oh, really, Aziz? Okay.
No.
I would say,
Went right over my head.
I thought it was too on the nose.
Yep.
I would say.
Sometimes those are the things I'm most likely to miss.
I did not like her narration as much, I would say.
Okay. So maybe you like the choice to narrate less than the actual things she narrated.
Yeah, I wanted more puppetry and more mummery, and I think we'll see that going forward. We'll see her more in the action. I think we will see her in the action, not just narrating.
Yeah. From the trailer, she's wearing costumes and stuff.
I want more than just her narrating and being the poet, I guess, is my point.
He did see 2 puppet shows in the book.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and of course, there's the big one coming where Arian gets involved. So we'll at least see that one. Moving on to Manfred's Red Sex Workers. Manfred Dondarrion is portrayed as a pretty terrible person. These sex workers first make fun of Dunk. It's partly exposition to explain to the audience what a Hedge Knight actually is, and that's kind of an effective way to do it, and it's pretty comedic. It's nice to add a few more women to the story, because really there aren't many, hardly at all. Tanzel's in there, and this is an organic way to do that. I keep using that word, but it fits. They're not just bolted on. They fit very well, especially in the later scene, which we'll talk about in a moment. They point out that Manfred sleeps with other men's wives, and that's what they expected Dunk was, another man coming by aggrieved at being cuckolded or whatever. And so they're just used to that. And that by itself, I think, just sets up the rest of his day where he's looking for Sir Manfred and other things happen. But the thing that I think is a lot more meaningful, and the part that is one of the most meaningful scenes in the episode, perhaps, is when he comes back later and Manfred still isn't there. It's like, well, it's evenfall. And that's a nice little Easter egg, the line evenfall. The conversation inside there. Now, sex workers have a defined place in this society. But they're unlike all the other forms of commoners in that they actually have intimacy with the highborn. Like no other lowborn class has the level of intimacy that a sex worker can have with the nobility. So, most people deal with the nobility in passing or indirectly or not at all, like through subordinates maybe. So with sex workers, it's very different. It's very direct contact. And so the way this conversation goes is pretty similar. At the start, you have them kind of mocking him, making fun of him because they think he's just another jerky, asshole knight. And then once again, his earnestness disarms them and they start talking to him differently. And then basically the tone of the conversation is, hey man, we're similar. We both have to sell our bodies for money because that's the only thing available to us. But don't waste your body. Don't ruin yourself for somebody else. It's the only body you have. Don't get crippled on someone else's behalf. You need to think of yourself, and I thought that was really, really well done. Very poignant connection between these two very, on the surface, very different roles, knights versus sex workers. But in this case, because he's a Hedge Knight, there's a lot more they have in common. And in this scene, that's actually brought up indirectly when Dunk is asking or pleading with Sir Manfred. Manfred's he's like, my Sir Arlen took a wound in your service. And he's like, yeah, I don't remember that. Why would I remember that? We had people that lost limbs or died, How am I going to remember that? And that's exactly what the sex workers are saying. They're like, yeah, you're going to get hurt really badly, maybe crippled for someone who won't even remember that you did that for them.
a slightly more cynical take.
More cynical.
Yeah, I think Manfred's exact wording was, "I don't remember people who reaped more than a wound."
Yeah, like
Why
people
would
died.
I remember him?
Yeah.
So, well, I'm thinking of that even a different way. Some people like took a wound or died for me. Some people got me 4 horses from the captives.
Sure.
Some people got me a
good
new
point.
suit of armor and a chest of gold. That's who I don't care if you got hurt. What did you give me?
I mean,
And what spoils of war did I get? That's who I remember.
That's one take, but I think it's just like, yeah, if he had 500 people die, you think he remembers a man who took a wound and not? He can't remember 500 people who died. Could you, Sean? I couldn't.
No way.
I never could have. I don't care how good of a lord I am.
I wouldn't have known
I'm
their
not-
names in the first place.
I know I'm not going to have known them, and that's a sad fact. But I think even the best lord knows very few of those 800 men. Maybe even if they know 10%, that's only 80 men. That's 80 men,
Right.
and 10% is a lot.
Yeah, this is some of Dunk's naivete. He doesn't realize that's a reality. Like Sir Manfred isn't friendly about it, but he's exasperated because he's like, "What the hell do you think, man? How am I supposed to know that guy?" You know.
On one hand, I agree with everything you're saying. Like it is like a little unrealistic to expect him to remember one of many men who served at some point and got wounded. However, if you were going to remember some of the men who served under you, you're more likely to remember the landed knights. If 500 men died at that battle, that wasn't 500 knights. That was 500 hedge knights and peasants like Dunk and everyone else, right?
True.
But Sir Arlen was a knight. He should have been remembered.
Not a landed knight, though.
Right. I
But
guess
you're
maybe
right.
not a landed knight.
Yeah.
But also, one way or the other, even if he doesn't specifically remember him, he could have been like, I don't know, story sounds good. Sure, go ahead. Like
Yes.
he could have been kinder about it, even if he didn't remember, even if he justifiably didn't remember. He still could have offered up some assistance.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was having none of it.
Just in honor of it, he could have given him something. Like, yeah, sure, I'll vouch for you. Like, that's all he had to do. The ask was very small. That's another thing that made Dunk frustrated. Like, yo, like maybe you don't remember him, but I'm asking for so very little, and
Yeah,
you're not
Manfred
doubting my story. You're just saying you can't remember.
Yeah, Manfred could be like, "Hey, what was this circumstance? Describe this." Or he could test him. He could just test him, and
true.
it would come out the truth. You know what I mean? Because like you don't want to vouch for someone, and then they turn out to be an outlaw and someone who, you know what I mean?
That's a good point,
it
yeah.
is, you
Especially
want to be a
dressed
little
like that.
careful. But he could have asked him some questions.
Yeah, and maybe a more what's the opposite of cynical, optimistic view. Maybe Manfred knows that his vouching won't carry much weight. Like, yeah, Manfred will say anyone's a knight. Man, look, Manfred's sleeping with everyone's wife. Like, maybe he doesn't want to expose himself.
I don't think that's
like,
true
trying to
because
vouch for someone.
remember, this is the guy
But,
Plummer specifically suggested that he go
That's
to.
true.
So I don't think that's true. But either way, that's there's a lot of subtext here, and I think perhaps the biggest part that this is setting up is that Baelor is going to remember Sir Arlen later, and it's going to be really obscure. So like the forgetting of Sir Arlen is set up for Baelor to remember him later. So that is very meaningful in that sense too. There's also a big homage / comic relief Easter egg in this scene. The sex worker who appears to be dead because she has the painted eye stones over her eyes. That is an homage to episode 1, season 1 of Game of Thrones, where Jon Arryn is like that, and Cersei and Jaime are talking to her. And so in this scene, our subconscious is like, oh, that's a dead person. So it's very effective when she sits up. It even works on Dunk. It's like, whoa, he's creeped out for a second there. That was really funny. Let's talk about the Fossaways. I thought the casting for Raymond and Stefan was, I mean, I couldn't imagine better, really. The dialogue was almost identical. The 4 apple puns were all in the book. Not ripe yet, that's in the book. Rotten to the core, that's in the book. Knock the seeds out of him, in the book. The senior branch of the apple tree, in the book. Is that a longsword you wear? Yes, it's mine by rights. That's in the book. However, his response, that's an odd thing to say, is not. And that was really funny.
That was one of my favorite lines
Yes.
in the show, actually.
His delivery was perfect. If you look closely, you can see that their weapons are leather bound so that they're not, the edges are taken away. So it's a little more it's still not realistic to how they would train, but it's a lot more realistic than a lot of other scenes and a lot of other shows, including Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, where they're just fighting with completely normal weapons to practice without armor. It's crazy. But
there's something in between deadly and safe. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's not deadly, but it's still not safe. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that dude just got kicked through it. Yeah, I'm sure like splinters at the very least, bruises on the face, like he slapped him in the face. Yeah. And then the second conversation where Raymond sees Dunk walking by and runs after him, that's also not too dissimilar from the book, where Raymond just comes up to him and apologizes and says, hey, I'm sorry, because he's a good guy too. This shows us that Raymond's a good guy. He didn't have to tell Dunk. He didn't have to tell Dunk that, hey, I'm sorry, I almost set you up to get hurt. My cousin would have tried to hurt you on purpose, and I feel bad that I almost put you in that position. I shouldn't have done that. And if he could have never told Dunk that, and Dunk would not have been the wiser. So this is a really strong signal for what kind of man this guy is too, and it's why they walk and talk and are getting along, because they are the rare kind of like good seed. I made my own apple pun. And did you get Podrick Payne vibes from Raymond? Because man, did I. It's very similar in my mind.
I did, and I also do want to point out though that they made Stefan a little harsher here than he was in the book. He was a little more, it was like you a little more needed the explanation from Raymond that he might have tried to hurt you, because Raymond didn't come across because Stefan didn't come across quite so aggressive in the book.
That's true.
He was a little bit more cordial when he's asking him to fight. And then you realize after the fact that, he's trying to trick you. He's being underhanded. And here he's an outward obvious jerk. In the book, he was a little bit more of a underhanded, secret jerk.
Yeah, I don't think Stefan calls him any names in the book. Here, he calls him 3 different names in the span of that brief conversation.
But it was a good example. It was elegant story writing, elegant adaptation. Because in the book, Dunk goes into town almost automatically knowing he shouldn't stay there. He already has it in his mind that he will be at minimum scorned at, if not openly mocked.
Yeah.
I can't stay here. But in the show, we don't get to hear those thoughts in his brain. So it's demonstrated to us through this scene. It's like at this moment when Stefan insults him and a bunch of other people laugh, he realizes, let me go find a quieter place. This isn't for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, somewhere where I'm not going to get mocked for what I look like because of how he's dressed. If he had walked by in armor, like nice looking armor, people would have stopped to look at him in like, whoa. It would have been like an awe or respect or something. But yeah, so his size
would
is...
have been like, hey, come try me out, and think he could break his hand. Stefan would be like, oh crap, I don't hope I don't have to go against him.
yeah, exactly. So his size, it's really interesting how his size is such a part of the story here. And there's another one coming in a minute, but let's finish this scene because I got one more thing to say here, or 2 more actually. I love how happy Raymond got when Dunk told him he fights well for a squire, which is another like Podrick Payne vibe from that exchange. And then the line where he says, you'll have the look of a challenger. Whose shield are you going to tap tomorrow? And he says, who you choose doesn't matter. And then there's a pause and he says, that's what you're supposed to say. When it actually makes all the difference in the world. That's just Dunk's inner monologue in the book. He thinks all 3 of those things to himself in the book. So it's another great example of a simple thought he has that's easily turned into dialogue.
And can I say another thing about this scene? Or
yes.
These interactions, which was not quite as much in the book. At least I didn't pick up on it as much. But it was a little bit of a Dunk's imposter syndrome, his realization that he doesn't really belong here. When he tells... Raymond that he fights good for a squire, Raymond takes that as like, oh wow, someone's complimenting on me how good I am fighting. But in Dunk's mind, he's like, crap, I'm not near as good as him, and he's just a squire. How, like, he's just a squire, ostensibly the knights are better than him. I'm really just a squire too, and he's way better than me. Like, how can I compete? That he wanted to compliment Raymond, but really he was thinking less of himself. Does that make sense? That's
a good point. And like Dunk hasn't fought with a sword. Like he hasn't. That's another thing. He's like, not only is he kind of maybe fudging some other details, like literally hasn't ever sword fought someone. Maybe he's trained a little bit with Sir Arlen, but it wasn't, they weren't fighting in for real. It was training. And I love the half-man line.
Even in training, they weren't fighting as for real as Raymond and Stefan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love the half-man line. That's another great joke, which again is a Podrick Payne reference because Podrick was Tyrion's squire. And the half-man joke, of course, is the opposite. He's like, do I look like a half-man to you? I, half-man, half-giant. Another really well-delivered joke. Love that. Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with a whole lot more. If you are wanting to support us during this Hedge Knight Night of the Seven Kingdoms season, you can do so through Patreon. Head to patreon.com/History of Westeros and choose the level that's right for you. We have bonus episodes, shout outs, and all sorts of fun things like that, including access to notes and voting and other things. If you go to our website, historyofwesteros.com, you can find a link to our Patreon page, as well as a link to our new tour shirt, which I wore in the preview episode. Shea designed it. It's got all the different places Dunk and Egg go to throughout their career, marked as if they're tour dates, and it says A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It's really nice looking. Get your own through that link. And of course, we also have links to other things on our site, like links to Amazon. You can do your shopping there, and we get credit for that without you spending any more. A couple of questions from the y'all, or comments. Corn Emperor says, is Sean drinking anything with Mountain Dew? Yeah, Sean, we didn't do your beverage today. Are you doing a special beverage? My bad for not asking.
This is the Naked Green Drink, or the Green Machine, mixed with Magic Mind, mixed with Baja Blast Mountain Dew. So yes is the answer. Yes, short answer, yes.
You came through. Very good, Sean. You did not disappoint. Darwonka says, I'm not sure if they're leaning into it, but it seems that Egg has a little bit of that Targ shine about him. He seems to just know things he probably couldn't know out of hand, like where Dunk had his tree fort. Yeah, that's one of the undertones in the book, where he knows a few things that are kind of beyond his capability. But it all happens so quickly and subtly that you can't put it together quickly enough. And I think this is a jumping point to a conversation about how they're handling this, which is they have to be even more subtle with it, because if you're reading the book, you're going to pick it up again the next day or the day after that. Maybe you finish it in one setting. What you're not doing is spending a week in between readings while also interacting with the entirety of the internet about what they think.
Yeah, rewatching it multiple times, pause, rewind, writing quotes down, reading forums of analysis, and on and on. Yeah,
it's way different. Yeah, so they have to be a little more sly with some of these things, because it's just gonna, you have millions more brains all working together on these questions. So not to mention that the answers are already out there, like in plain written English in the books or whatever. So yeah. Let's move on to Party at the Laughing Storms. In the book, Raymond takes Dunk to a party. We talked briefly about that, and they just changed it to the Laughing Storm party, and it's earlier in the novella rather than later. It's a completely new scene. Something important about the setting that here is reminiscent of House of the Dragon is that you have high nobles who haven't lived under any major threat for over a decade, if not more. The Blackfire Rebellion being that example. So there's more partying. People just aren't worried as much. In House of the Dragon, it's the same thing. They've been at peace for so long. People just when they get a chance to fight for fake, they make it a little bit real because they have so much verve. There's the Knights of Summer with nowhere to put that violent energy. In Game of Thrones, Robert's Rebellion isn't super long ago. It's, 17 years. It's more than a generation. But Balon's Rebellion is only about 8 years past. So there's a lot of the current adults in that setting have fought in multiple wars. Now, in this one, there's some who have fought in the Blackfire Rebellion, but there's a lot of adults who haven't fought in anything. Nothing significant at all. So it has that vibe of a peaceful king in both cases. Daeron II is actually a good king, whereas Viserys wasn't actually a good king, but he was very strong in the not starting wars department, even though, in his lifetime, he set up one after his death. But that aside, we're not going too deep with this parallel.
Very strong in the intention to not start wars.
Yes, there you go.
Results may vary, yeah.
So here, it's another thing that's similar is that there are too many Targaryens. There's a lot of Targaryens, and as Maekar or Daeron says, I think it's Daeron, the king says, too many Targaryens can be as dangerous as too few. And that's partly why Aemon goes off to be Maester Aemon in this timeline. It's been decades since the dragons died out, and there are living people in this setting who saw the last dragon, including Sir Arlen of Pennytree himself, which is a thought that Dunk has. I wonder how they're going to have that in the show. Is he going to say that out loud, or what? Because this obviously can't be thought.
It could be sort of thought, because we got little Arlen flashbacks.
That's a good point.
We could get a flashback to Arlen telling the story of the dragon. So far, they've been just the quickest little images, but we might get like a whole conversation as they walk down a road or sit at a campfire, you know?
Yeah, and one of the reasons I bring this up as we start talking about Laughing Storm here is two reasons. One is that he clearly is not a young man. He's not an old man, but he has gray in his beard, which indicates that he's probably in his 40s.
He's at least 25 or 27. Oh, 40? Oh.
So he would have fought in the Blackfire Rebellion, almost certainly. So that is important, because in the book, we're not sure if he's even the heir at this point. We know he inherits, so it's a safe assumption. It's a fair... I would have done the same thing they did, was say, well, let's just go ahead and say he's the heir. We don't know that for sure, because it allows them to do this, like, he's spending a lot, he's he's just doing what he wants, throwing money around. And that creates this huge contrast between him and Dunk, which is, despite these differences, there's something they have in common, something that brings them together. And I think it's pretty well done. Let's talk specifically. Something we brought up in the preview is that none of the show Baratheons are large. They just did away with that. Stannis isn't large. Robert isn't large. Renly isn't large. In the books, they're all very big men. So that here we go. Laughing Storm, not big either. And they reference that. Dunk sits down and says, I thought he'd be larger. So in the book, the Laughing Storm is, he laughed as he's beating people. He's like, it's so easy. That's kind of the implication, that it's so easy for him that he just laughs. He's like, you little man, you can't beat me. But he's also a little clever in that he starts using his lance to knock the heraldry off of fancy men's helmets. And then he throws that heraldry into the crowd for the commons to collect. And then so fancy highborn people stop challenging him because they don't want to lose their wealthy, expensive helmets. And that's maybe part of his strategy. Like, on the other hand, he wants to fight the Kingsguard. And that is referenced here as well when he says it's an honor to test yourself against a worthy foe. So that's all part of the character that we know. And I think this is a big deal with this character because of all the main characters, Rhaemon, Steffan, all the Targaryens, Dunk himself, especially Dunk and Egg, etc. They all are... We have an idea of their personality. In my opinion, Laughing Storm, of the people that are in Dunk's circle at the end, he by far is the one that we don't know about his personality. He's just a guy that laughs and wants to fight. That's really it. So here they're like, let's give a better reason for Laughing Storm to be on Dunk's side other than he wants to fight the Kingsguard. While they also make him a little bit of a lunatic. He's just a little bit unhinged, which also explains why he's so eager to fight the Kingsguard. Like, what?
I liked in the making of, Daniel Ing said the logline, the description for him, for the character, was Jack Sparrow mixed with Ernest Hemingway. And yeah, boy, does that translate. He nailed it, frankly.
Yes. Go ahead, Sean. I've been talking for a while, so I'll come back with some more thoughts on the scene, but you go ahead for a bit.
I don't have a whole lot more to say. I mean, overall, I like the scene. I think it was well done. I didn't have any super particular notes other than things you're hitting on already. I saw you put in a document that it reminds you of Peter Dinklage. That's totally where my mind went, is that he just looks, and in a lot of ways acts like Tyrion. He doesn't have, like, both the physical capability and the confidence that comes with it. Tyrion is lacking. Tyrion has a different sort of capability and confidence. But what they both have in common are wanting to drink and party and have clever conversations and looking exactly the frickin' the same.
Yeah, especially from the side angle. It really struck me from the side when he was when they were sitting by each other rather than face on. He looked a little more like Oscar Isaac to me, which also is a pretty good look.
Like Oscar Isaac. And I don't know what point. The thing is, he looks so similar to me. I think it can't be a pure coincidence. It might have been a coincidence at casting, but they had to decide this sort of hair and the curl and the goatee and all that stuff, I'm confident they made that modeled after Tyrion, after Peter Dinklage.
So there's a few different characters throughout A Song of Ice and Fire history. They're called the Laughing something. Like the Laughing Lion is Tyrion's Uncle Jaerion. It's pretty explicit that Jaerion was a cynical, joking guy, sarcastic, joking guy. So Laughing Lion was very fitting, where this Laughing Storm is because he's a little unhinged. He also laughs, but it's more of the loon style laughter, a little bit crazy than the sense of humor a foot forward first. Although, to be fair, Uncle Jaerion sailed to Valyria, which is a bit mad itself. So, hey, anyway. Another...
He the one that lost their Valyrian blade there?
No, he's the one who went to try and find it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're close, yeah. So... Another thing that I love about this scene, I think it's one of the biggest points of the scene, is what I led with in terms of developing Lionel's character more so that he has a better connection to Dunk. Here's what happens. Let's recount some of the action and we'll analyze as we go here. He gets called out. He's like, you, come over here, right? And Dunk is like, me? And at first I might be like, why is Dunk getting selected out of all these people? Well, it's because he's way taller than everybody and is the poorest dressed by far. So he really, really does stand out a lot. Like, he stands out like a sore thumb. So they're not going to he can't blend in. Like, he can slouch all he wants. He cannot blend in. So they are curious naturally about who this guy is. And Lionel, being a very rich man, the son of a great lord, of one of the most powerful lords in the kingdom, he does narrow almost everything down because it's his life, because it's the life he lives. Almost everybody does want his help or his head, as he puts it. Most people want his head. I mean, his help. The help is more valuable, taking his head.
I want his head.
Yeah, we all want.
No, yeah. I don't. I want his head.
She wants his head. So there's the exception.
I don't think Aziz gets it.
So he really, from his point of view, that is what almost everyone wants something from him, right? He's rich. He can provide things. So it makes sense. And so then he has that hilarious, he's like, oh, you're here for my head. Must be you're here for my head then, since you're not here for my help. And Jack's like, wait, what? It's so funny. But then he's like, no, I'm here for food. And then I'm really just hungry. And Lionel takes him a minute, and his delivery is so good, but he's like, yeah, actually that makes sense. Because he thinks through. He's like, yeah, you're broke. Makes sense that you would want a free meal. You know, that actually does make sense.
And also, it makes sense in other levels too. Like, the person coming to get his head wouldn't be such an obvious person, right? They
yeah.
You know what I mean? They would be sneaking, wearing black with a dagger or something, not this big oaf in poor man's clothes, right?
Good point.
And probably the same thing for someone that would want his help. Probably wouldn't be so bold as to just show up and eat his food and dance around and like, oh, by the way, I want some, you know, like it is on multiple levels. And it also makes sense. Hey, he's a big dude. He's hungry. And it's exactly specifically true because Raymond said, are you hungry? Dunk's like, always. And then Raymond brought him here. He didn't necessarily know that this was the Laughing Storm's party or anything. He's just some other noble family guy.
He would have known Baratheon, but that's it.
Guest, you know, right. So
yeah, if you've ever known anyone who's 6'5", like Peter Claffey is, I've heard them say that. Yeah, they're pretty much hungry all the time. So it's very believable. So this is.
I must be 6'5".
Imagine you if you were 6'5", you would just eating all the time. So of all the people that Dunk disarmed with his wholesomeness, after people expect that he's up to something, and then they pull back the curtain and they're like, oh, wholesomeness, that's what's behind there. It's not something dastardly or sneaky. It really is he's really what he seems to be. And that immediately makes Lionel like him, because he's like, you don't want anything from me. I don't know anyone like that. It's amazing. I want more people like this in my life. I don't know anyone who doesn't want things from me. So it's extremely refreshing. So at first I was like, is this a little bit too much, having these two become friends? And then I realized, no, it's perfect. They nailed, like, the thinking that went into this scene it seems kind of random and manic and chaotic, and just they're showing partying, but there is a lot of character work going on here. I even like
setup and foreshadowing.
Yeah, like the as I said before, the foreshadowing of him saying it's an honor to test yourself against a worthy foe. That's one of the big lines there where he's gonna face the Kingsguard. I even like the stomping game.
I have a second thought about that. I mean, he's gonna face Lionel.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's one thing of one day.
That's true. That's true. They're going to face each other. That's very true.
But the other bit that I thought that was resonant character beat for Lionel was talking about seafaring and the ocean and all that, especially when you consider in a Game of Thrones, Stannis and Robert and Renly losing their parents to the sea. Lionel could have easily been one of those Baratheons lost to the sea, but he wasn't. And so it made sense for that to be a tale he would tell.
Yeah, well said. I appreciated this. Go ahead, Sean.
I also really liked the line, and it was maybe a little bit of a reference to original Game of Thrones, because, wasn't it? Am I remember right? Isn't it Ned Stark that says you have to be afraid in order to be brave?
Yeah.
Something to that effect. Because Dunk asked Lionel, "Weren't you scared?" And he says, "Inside every man, there are many men."
Yeah,
basically saying, "Yeah, part of me was scared, but another part of me was brave." So
yeah,
I think it's
a good
line.
That was a good line. You're right. Yeah, it's so good. That scene is just so good. And okay, another thing that I thought might have seemed gratuitous or weird to some of y'all, and once I thought about it, I was like, oh, there's actually some purpose here, which was the weird stomping game where they were trying to stomp on each other's feet. To me, this was like, it's like a milder version of the finger dance. Like, you could get broken toes doing this. These are large, strong men with big boots. You know what I'm saying? So they could really hurt each other. But it's a matter of quickness. Like, it's a martial game. You're moving your feet, and it shows that Dunk is light on his feet. Like, he's a big, strong guy, but he's also maneuver. Like, he's moving around quickly, and he beats Lionel in this game, which is that's meaningful. Lionel's drunk, to be fair, but still, that's meaningful.
It is interesting that Lionel chose this game to play with Dunk as maybe a little bit of a test for him. And he later does say, Dunk says, "Sure, I'm quick and I'm strong." And so I think that scene shows some of his quickness, right? Mm-hmm. And Lionel responds, and Dunk says, but so are you. And Lionel's like, oh, well, yes, I am quick. But anyway, I went a step further, Aziz. I suspect this might specifically come into play later. Ooh. I bet there's going to be some sword fight action later where someone stomps or attempts to stomp on someone's foot.
Okay. I like that idea. Yeah, we'll see. That's a cool idea. So just one other tidbit about the scene in general. Ira Parker, who of course is the showrunner, he loves dancing scenes. He loves dance scenes. He just put that out. And earlier I skipped this over by accident. Apparently Owen Harris, the director, he did a Monty Python, was it documentary or
yes.
Yeah, so that also fits super well.
But yeah, Ira Parker compared this scene to Fiddler on the Roof, which is a great comparison.
Oh, yeah.
It also resolves with Manfred Dondarrion, so it gets right back to what Dunk was trying to do all day long. So it kind of brings us back to his search, and that's what we've already discussed the conversation about Manfred and how that went. But there's a couple more things I'll say about it from a different perspective. One is that they dropped the book line of him also just retelling the Dondarrion legend of the purple lightning and the messengers. They didn't bother having him do that. Maybe he'll do that later, but it seemed I can understand why they dropped that. I wonder if with Manfred limping away, they said he had gouty toes. I feel like this is an homage to Harry Strickland, who they didn't really use the book version of Harry Strickland in the show. They just had like this professional looking commander who got wiped out by Drogon like all the rest of the Golden Company did in the show. So they never went with gouty toes Harry Strickland version. So this could be kind of like, we'll just use that here. So, and then they have that, that fun joke. You said, well, I thought you said you were a Dornishman. No, he said he was hung like a Dornishman. No, I said I hung Dornishman.
A fun, very dark joke. Yeah, just good wordplay, but really, really heavy, honestly.
Yeah. Also, in terms of those of you who are really deep into the lore, there's been a long theorizing not just about the Laughing Storm and how old he was and how he fell into the succession line. That one's a little easier because of how he definitely inherits eventually. With Manfred, it's what we always wondered what his connection to Jenna Dondarrion was, because Jenna is Baelor Breakspear's wife, and of course the mother of their children. So we were wondering if Manfred is perhaps uncle to Valar and all them. And we do see Manfred is one of the people in that funeral scene. We get that clip of the funeral right over Valar's right shoulder is Manfred.
It might give him a little more leeway in his arrogance and
who his in-laws are
exploits with women and everything else, when it's hard for anyone to say anything to him if he's a king's half brother, step brother. What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, we don't know exactly. That's the point. Yeah,
or whatever.
I think sibling. I think brother-in-law. Yeah, because he's probably around the same age as Jenna, who is the one that's married to the Targaryens,
or nephew-in-law.
Yeah, something like that. Corn Emperor says, join the Patreon and Discord if you haven't already. Yes, thank you. Join the Patreon and Discord if you haven't already. We do also have a Facebook discussion page, but yeah, I hadn't mentioned the Discord today, so that's a good one. We have that link in the description as well. TKOK Podcast Network says, Laughing Storm was always my favorite nickname in the books. Dunk scene with him was easily my favorite. Laughing Storm, best hang in Westeros? Definitely best at eating food with a warhammer.
I think he's very capricious in a way that you would want to be very careful hanging out with him, that if you just say the wrong thing, I think he could really turn on you in a dime. You know what I mean? So I think he would be a great hang, but I think you'd be better off hanging out with Tyrion Lannister, who would not probably have you burned as a heretic. Now, he was joking about that, but I do think Lionel probably snaps sometimes and really hurts people and
I think you're right.
Cuts them out of high society. Yeah. I think he could ruin someone if he wants to, and he often probably wants to.
Yeah. If Dunk had been someone more nefarious, right? If Dunk hadn't been who he had been, if it turned out he was there with a poison dagger or something, it would have been the new main feature of the tournament to have him tortured to death in public or something, right?
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about the music a little bit. They did that little joke at the beginning with the original theme. They started to play the original music, and then Dunk starts using the bathroom. Like we already talked about that, but
we talked about it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to talk about it a little bit more.
Go for it.
A lot of people didn't like that scene, and I get there's some gratuitous element to it, yada yada. In my opinion, it's just kind of a weirdly unrealistic position to take. I think it is, and this is what Ira Parker and them have said. It was important to them to really set the tone so early, to have an editing decision like that, to where you hear the swelling, epic Game of Thrones music, and then you cut to something comical, crass, mundane, even. You know what I mean? Common. And so, yeah, I think maybe the execution could be better, but I will argue that it was an important editing beat.
Yeah, like we said, it's a different. There's more to it than just they weren't just making a crass joke. Yeah.
It's a lot of people are turned off by it being a crass joke, which I get, and I didn't exactly like it or whatever, but I did like it from, like you said, Ashaya, as sort of an editing, writing, storytelling perspective. It was a good gear shift. It was a humorous moment, even if it was gross. Lots of gross moments or get humor out of them. And but on top of all that too, for better or worse, and this also, I don't mean this to sound as cynical as it might, but it's kind of a good marketing decision, right? We're all freaking talking about it, right?
Oh, yeah. That's true.
It caught our attention. It wasn't what we expected. We whether we're laughing about it or grossed out, very few people are going to not watch this show because of that. And everyone is going to talk about that. I even though I get that it was kind of weird, gross, whatever, I also think it was good. I think it was an overall positive.
We watched this with my mom, and she said, wow, I didn't expect it. It's so much lighter than she was like, that last one, the dragon one, had the baby scene. That's what she could remember so clearly.
Yeah, I guess that's the comparison.
Yeah, that's the comparison. And she's like, in Game of Thrones, she was comparing it to those two shows. And I was like, yeah, it didn't seem to faze her at all, frankly. She was just relieved that it was not as gruesome and heavy.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to move away from such iconic music as Ramin Djawadi. That's a hard thing to be like, ooh, we're not going to have him. But they nailed it. I think the new guy is Dan Romer. It's a very different style of music. It's very fitting. It's got a lot of Western vibes to it. There's a lot of slow guitar with symphony behind it. There's that one very happy song you mentioned earlier. It sounds so much like Rainbow Connection to me. We had somebody watching it with us here, Amanda, and she went at the end of the show. She's like, "Hey, you're a musical guy. Did you think Rainbow Connection?" I said it before she did, and she's like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say." So clearly, I'm not the only one who caught the Rainbow Connection vibes from that one song. To give credit, the new guy, his name is Dan Romer. He did the music for Station 11, Superman and Lois, The Good Doctor. He won an ASCAP award for that one. Lilo and Stitch, Death of a Unicorn, Woman of the Hour. And he's done production for Christina Aguilera and Shawn Mendes.
Can I real quick just say Station 11 was an awesome show. I highly recommend it.
Nice. Right, let's move forward to some stuff that I had saved to be spoiler only discussion, but let's we don't really mind it all now, so let's talk about it regardless. One of the strategies, as we touched on before, they're cutting back on the clues for the Targaryen identities and dreams and stuff like that because of what we said about how much time people are going to take to talk about it and the internet and all that. So I totally understand that. They do little things like, say, Plumber says there are princes about, instead of things like Dunk spending quite a bit of time thinking about who the current king is, who the princes are. It's a lot of it's in his head. They remove almost all of that. Maybe it'll just come up later, but for now, no. Like you mentioned earlier, Sean, how they took out that line, all that guy does is drink and talk about his dreams. Good example. They took that out. He still mentioned his dreams, but they didn't like repeat it to keep the emphasis kind of milder. I would really like to know from people who don't know Game of Thrones well if they recognized Daeron, if they thought, is that a Targaryen? You know, like I feel like a lot of people will be wondering that. It's hard for us to know.
A couple quick things.
Yeah, absolutely.
One, I thought it was interesting that Dunk immediately referred to him as Lord, and I think it's reasonable because he's
very well dressed. Yeah.
But even having color in your clothes at all, that's like dyes. It costs money, and it's a nice material with color. So it's reasonable. And it's also probably a little bit of Dunk. Like, it's safer to assume that guy's a lord and be wrong than to not assume he's a lord and be wrong.
Good point.
Right? So, but still, I do think it's interesting to think, I can see someone not even assuming he's a lord, much less a Targaryen. So I do think that's an interesting to ask of someone who isn't as familiar with the material.
True.
Also want to point out sort of a twofold thing. One way they're downplaying, and this is a full-on spoiler. So in case you're still watching and are worried about spoilers, I think that one way they are shifting the mystery away from who Egg is by shifting it toward whether or not Dunk is a knight.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I think in the book, those are both mysteries, but one, and it's something George is great at doing, is he's presenting mysteries that you don't even realize or you're supposed to be figuring something out. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think in the book you knew, especially if you didn't know anything about the rest of the Martin world, which when his book came out, there wasn't that much more to the Martin world, right? So
it's true. Yeah, originally this came out after Clash of Kings, y'all, before Storm of Swords. Let's not forget that.
And I think it was at least my second or third reading before it started to click into my head the idea that Dunk might not be a knight. And then when I started to bring it up with other people, ad nauseum discussion had already been had, and everyone was ready to prove me why I was wrong. But it wasn't. My point is that even reading through it a couple times with familiarity with the whole world, that still wasn't like a mystery clicking in my head. When I realized it was being presented that way, and I look back on it, I see the different ways that they were kind of like show him remember one thing but not remember this, and his ears get red when he's embarrassed, which is something that's hard to do on screen. So they found other ways to demonstrate his embarrassment or whatever. But I'm quick to point out, well, some people equated the red ears to when he's lying, but that's not quite true. It's just when he's embarrassed. One time you might be embarrassed is when you lie.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that they're being a little bit more apparent, if not obvious, about that being an issue of Dunk being a knight or not. But you're not even realizing that there is some mystery with Egg. And some things happen in a book that make it easier. Like, this is another nature of writing. When you read something, you know a little more certainly that they put that line. You can't not have your attention drawn to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if you're looking at two people in a room having a conversation and you're looking at their facial expressions and listening to what they're saying and drawing what you can from that, but you have no idea that some painting in the background is supposed to represent something, right? Maybe under watch, or when someone points it out, like, oh, that was a clue, right? But in the book, if they write something about the painting in the background, you can't not notice that. You know what I mean?
It's too selected. Yeah, they've picked out something from all the things that are in the background to describe it. It must be important.
Right. So in the book, Dunk notices Egg's eyes are deep blue, almost purple.
Yeah.
And then later, when he sees Aryan, he's like, oh, he's got the bleach blonde hair and purple eyes, the two trademarks of a Targaryen. Well, Egg has no hair. You know what I mean? It's just another way that they're cluing you there in ways that are way harder to do here. If they just gave Egg purple eyes, that would be too obvious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, and they've already done away with purple eyes on the show. That's the decision they made long ago, so they just couldn't do that. So that made it a little easier for them, actually. That decision actually helped them.
But another thing they did do, and I don't remember this from the book. I'm not going to say it wasn't there, but I don't quite remember. But when Dunk asks Egg, when Egg says, you know, what would your mom think of that? And he's like, oh, not much, she's dead. And he's ready to be mad at Egg, but like, has a little bit of sympathy when he finds out his mom's dead, and cuts himself short of some whatever quip insult kind of thing he was going to give him. Instead, he says, oh, are you an orphan boy? And Egg doesn't quite answer the question. He says, are you? So we're still left kind of with the implication that Egg is an orphan, right? So I don't think if you didn't know that you would know that that's a mystery being presented to you.
And you don't know he also similarly doesn't fully answer the "Are you from Flea Bottom" part. He says no, but he doesn't expand on it.
He doesn't lie. He doesn't lie to him. He says, "Are you?" He asks him, "Are you an orphan boy? Are you from Flea Bottom?" No, from King's
he doesn't
Landing.
lie.
He's not a liar. He's not lying to him.
Weasel words.
He's just a lie of omission.
It's very clever.
He's like the pluribus, the plur hive.
So there's one of the other kind of clues that's maybe a clue to think about it more, not necessarily a clue of who he is he is awfully skilled for someone that small, which indicates he's young. This is sort of pushed back on by Dunk thinking, he doesn't look like he eat very much, which was kind of an idea, oh, he is poor or something like that. And then you have the way he talks. That's the biggest one. That is, you couldn't possibly have that in the book. You can't hear what he sounds like. I mean, George could have said his speech is polished, but that would have been too much of a giveaway. Here, his speech is very polished. He speaks very clearly. He thinks like, I had enough of that in. And he says, my lord versus my lord.
Does
things
he
like
say
that.
my lord in the book ever, would be the question?
He does say my lord,
well, then, then he does do the polished speech thing.
However, I should say, the polished speech thing, when George wrote that my lord thing, that's in A Dance with Dragons. That's Roose talking to Theon, so that's literally 13 years later than the Hedge Knight that he explained what the my lord thing is. So when he wrote this, he hadn't explained that in the books yet. And obviously now all of us have read that, so we do have that explanation. But I think that's interesting that he played with this before he explained it many years, which he does sometimes. So they also, it's not just the paring down, the way they present his identity a little differently. It's also just like paring down the supernatural in general. They like, less talk about Targaryens, let's talk about dreams, let's talk about any of that stuff, which is all same, just all format, right? Just don't get them thinking about that. Another one that's missing, a Dunk in the book asks, what happened to your hair? And he gives another straight answer there either. He just says the maester shaved it off. He doesn't say why. He's like, oh yeah, well, that's literally how it happened.
Yeah, Dunk thinks, oh yeah, sometimes they do that when you have lice. You know, he still's that explanation works for Dunk, and the explanation in Dunk's mind pushes the audience to further accept him as someone who's poor, not someone who's a prince, right?
Yes, absolutely. Shout out to Laura Jane, who had a great thought on the Egg Dunk shooting star scene. Remember, in the book, all that is in Dunk's inner monologue. He just thinks about the star and the luck, blah, blah. But in the show, they give the line to Egg, shooting star brings luck. And that it's very poignant because Egg's mother is from House Dane. Their sigil is a shooting star. So it makes a lot of sense that he would know lore or old wives' tales, whatever you want to call them, about shooting stars. So that's very fitting. Like that one. Let's talk about Brienne for a minute here. There's not a lot of like overt Brienne content so far. The one perhaps Easter egg was, when will he be awake? And they say Evenfall. Evenfall Hall is the capital of Tarth, or the seat of House Brienne's family. So yeah, which Dunk will eventually go there. So, but mostly I wanted to talk about how all these multiple situations that Dunk disarms people with his earnestness and his naivety does not work for Brienne. She is just as honest and naive, but it goes the opposite way because of just, the difference in how gender is treated in Westeros. She's a woman. A big woman is not a big man. It's like, oh, you're a big man. That's good. A big woman, like, oh, big woman, blah. They don't like that. So she gets mocked for things that Dunk it's an advantage for him, and neither of them are aware necessarily of this going into it, like, because Brienne comes from a sheltered environment. She came from Tarth, which is like a microcosm of ancient Andal values. She wasn't ready to be mocked and the cruel games that the other knights play. She had no idea that would happen. She thought they would be noble and honorable. But yeah, so, and that's kind of where Dunk's approach is. He's like, well, Sir Arlen taught me to be noble and honorable. That's what I'm going to be. So he also doesn't perceive all the harm and mockery and all the stuff around him. He doesn't realize that's the case. And it's very similar to Brienne. But as I said, in Brienne's case, it goes negative for her. In Dunk's case, it kind of tends to go well for him.
Think, too, how some of the mockery that Dunk might get, that a person might get, Dunk doesn't. Some people that might mock him don't, because he's too big, right? He'll beat me up, right? See, he doesn't face some mockery that a person might. And some of the respect he gets, he probably doesn't realize that he gets because he's big too. For example, I wonder if Plumber would have given the advice, go find someone to vouch for you and then maybe we'll let you in. If he had been smaller, if he had been like some skinny, short person that also looked like a farmer, they're like, no. Plumber at least like, well, you're big. I get, you can compete. Go ahead, get some. But if he had been some scrawny guy, he'd be like, now get out of here. You're not putting up with these knights. You're not going to do this. So yeah.
Very true. To be fair, it's not all about gender. It mostly is, but it's also about appearance. Dunk is handsome. Brienne is explicitly said to be ugly. So that's part of it too. Like some people are just, hey, he's handsome. I like him. I'll talk to him, whatever. But another similar part of this is, or example of this is when he's talking to the sex workers and he's like, rather than being like insulting them back when they insulted him, he's like, you didn't have to mock me. And they're like, whoa, what a thing to say. Like, how earnest, how wholesome, But if Brienne had said, you didn't have to mock me to all those knights that played that game with her, they would have laughed even harder. They would have mocked her even harder. Extra. Yeah, so it's just more showing weakness. So anyway.
Can I say, I do think there was one other allusion being made to Brienne.
Oh,
what does Lionel tell Dunk?
Well, a few things. What is specifically?
He has no chance.
Oh,
right now,
no chance.
He has no chance, and soon he'll have no choice and no chance.
Very good. Nice. Excellent. Yeah, well caught, Sean. I like that. West of Westeros says, I believe Bran Stark is in this timeline. Well, if he's infinite, then maybe. I guess some of that could be how you view it.
I will say I can't help but always be on edge if there's a werewood around. I'll wonder. But I would say I don't think they can see through a bird back then. I saw people that were like, oh, Bran's in the Robin, Bloodraven as living then could be, say. However, I don't think Bran and Bloodraven in the future can go back to any animal.
Perhaps not. Yeah.
But they can go back to a werewood. So if you saw a scene in the show in front of a werewood, I would think it's totally possible for any of the people tapped into that to see. I don't think that's the case for the opening Robin scene, however.
Yeah. Also, by the way, y'all, R.I.P. to Bob Ware from The Grateful Dead, the person who werewoods are named after. He made it to, I think, age 91. That's a good number. Let's talk.
You knew how good for your longevity the rock and roll lifestyle was.
The tree helped him, right? The weirwood, yeah. Here's a little section we want to talk about the making of. There's always a making of with each episode, and we always like to watch that. And especially the first episode, because it's just bringing us into a lot of this stuff without any of. I was having little understanding of what they started with, and from then you build on it. So Shay's got some things here.
Here, I can mute you. There we go. Yes, I recommend it. Always. It's on YouTube. It's about 17 minutes. The Making of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. They do concept art compared to the final shot, like you can see here. Love to see the concept art. They show non-color graded versions of things like the pavilions and the armor and the swords and little wooden stag concepts. And I just wanted to skim through it for y'all who maybe some of you don't have access to it because you're in a different country, or you just want to see the highlights. You can see some shots here. They did like models of all of Ashford, like full models of it, which I'll get to, but just the beautiful artistry involved in all the shields, all the pavilions, etc. All of the wares that the merchants have, the eggs and the spices and George. George happy. You'll see lots of George in the making of, him happy about it. They built a whole bridge. Like they modeled and made a bridge that went across this river, a working bridge, which is pretty cool.
It had to be a bridge that didn't interfere with the salmon, so there's no supports going into the water. It only spans both sides of the shore.
Yeah, it's really cool bit of engineering. George said they should keep. That's what he's laughing about here. That he said they should keep the bridge, and I think they should. It's such a cool bridge. And you can see they overlaid some of the quotes from the novella with some of the scenes that they built, which is a pretty cool touch for them to do. And I'm still getting to the model. Here we go. This is the model they did of Ashford for them to build off of, and it's just so cool. I can't wait to go to see the filming locations, to see the Belfast museum they have with all of this stuff, and I'm sure they're going to add a whole bunch of it so we could hopefully see some of this stuff in person. These real models, real armor, Egg's little robe there, concept art of Egg where he looks
like an alien there.
I know, he looks like an alien.
Like
I agree.
vampire.
Yeah, he looks intense.
Yeah, he's baby
there.
of Nosferatu there.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, you also will see just lots and lots of silly gag reel bloopers and stuff like that. So I highly recommend it. I'm sorry if it's region locked and you can't see it. I'll be disappointed for you if that's the case. But
yeah, there's so many cool
overview.
things. The banners.
I did see a clip of Martin saying, I'm not quoting exactly, but he said something to the effect of walking onto the set was like walking into his book. He really thought they nailed the look of the whole world. So.
Yeah, that's great. You know, because George himself has said, and I'm known to be very reasonable about these things.
I like this comment here from Tyler McAlpine. Viserys would love that model.
Oh.
He sure would.
Viserys
Great
would love
point.
that model.
Great
That is really
point.
true. Let's talk a little bit about some other stuff where we've got, I guess, just a couple of more things. I wanted to let you all know that on Friday we'll talk about the trailer and the rest of season, because they did do, there's a trailer with stuff in it. And there's a whole rest of season trailer like they do sometimes. And there's some interesting things in there. Some pretty big scenes are shown, and there's some things that are a little bit unexpected in a good way. And we'll talk about that
tune
in our
on,
preview episode.
On Friday, on the screen, you can see we do see more Dunk flashbacks, which I was eager for, and we do seem to see some extended ones. So that'll be whet your appetite for what we're going to talk about on Friday.
More Bamber Todd. Love that kid.
Can I throw out real quick, by the way, that when we did our preview episode, and I don't want to take anything away from your effort, Aziz, because I hadn't really thought it out at all, but you had kind of predicted 6 sort of tentpole moments that might be the end.
I was wrong on episode 1.
Yeah, I was reading a book, and it's like halfway into the book, that scene still hasn't come yet. That scene with Pencil and Arryn and everything. And so I just started thinking, like, I don't think they can do it that early. And and when I think of it being, I think if it happens like episode 3, then
that's my guess.
Episode 4, he gets the team together. Episode 5 is a battle. Episode 6, they resolve.
Yeah.
And that's closer to the halfway point. So, but that did leave me thinking, well, what all else are they going to do in the first 2 episodes? So things like Dunk flashbacks, which we suppose this, like, I don't know, years ago that they might do that. And also
he hasn't done his armor yet.
Like this.
And selling his horse.
There are things straight from the book he still needs to do, like sell his horse and get the armor.
He's talked to Tanzel some more, and a few things like that. Yeah.
But also scenes like this with Lionel Baratheon, stuff like that does a lot to like reveal the thoughts in his head, further flesh out the world and the other characters.
Also, there's going to be
fill the space of the episode.
There's going to be actual jousts. We got to see the actual tournament moments and things like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
right, yeah,
that'll be cool.
He doesn't join the tournament though. I think until he didn't even plan on joining the tournament until the 3rd day.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Yeah. And before that happens, so he never actually competes in the tournament. It's funny. It's about a tournament, but our main character doesn't compete. And even though that's what he goes there explicitly to do.
That was my other, when you asked us in that preview episode what scene we were most looking forward to and through the season, my smart alecky answer was, I want to see who wins the tournament.
Well, that reminds me, we need to ask each other a question.
A question, eh?
Yeah, we never talked about what our favorite scene and our favorite character was. I think that we absolutely should. Do you have an answer for me right off the bat, Aziz?
Yeah, I think it's easy enough for me. Well, I'll let someone else say Laughing Storm. I'll say Raymond Fossaway. I was super pleased with Raymond. He just made me smile. His accent, I loved his accent. I mean, that's how that guy really speaks, I think. So, I just was very fitting. His delivery, just the character, and my favorite scene, probably the shooting star scene at the end. I thought that I really loved the switch there, and after Laura's catch there about House Dane, I love it even more.
Sean.
Oh, I think my favorite character might be the low-hanging fruit of Dunk. I'm tempted to name Plumber. It was so gross the way he kept hawking up movies, and similar kind of comedic, grounding of the opening poop scene. But it was so gross enough that it makes me hesitate to pick him. But I did like how he was reasonable. He was Dunk's kind of coming into this guy's world. It happens in a role. When anyone who's worked in retail, that it's your world, right? You know how the cash register works and where the storage room is and how busy it's going to be at 5. And someone comes into your world and they want to know where whatever socks are, or how to order French fries or something. They're not from your world, right? They're thinking about their kids failing math or their husband wrecked a car or whatever's in their world, and they're not in your world. And sometimes you have to kind of cater to them. You know what I mean? And I think Plumber was doing that. Dunk came in to Plumber's world, not knowing what the heck's going on. And Plumber was relatively kind to him. You know what I mean? I appreciated that scene on multiple levels.
Right on.
So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know for sure if I would. And I want to be clear. I didn't dislike Lionel or that scene. And in fact, I have an automatic inclination to like scenes that include dancing. And so I want to be very clear, I'm not being negative, but I didn't like the whole Lionel scene as much as other people seem to have. It seems like everyone's like super excited for it. And I thought it was really good.
Fair enough.
There are other things I might even pick as my favorite scene. I'm cheating a little bit, but be just conglomerate of all the scenes of Dunk just alone with the horses. Across the landscape with the sparse music and just kind of him being alone, facing the world on his own. I appreciate those kind of like down to earth moments. It gives you as an audience the chance to reflect on what's happening, what's he thinking, what would I do in this situation. A lot of times, and again, there's different styles of filmmaking and storytelling, but a lot of times things are kind of dense and there's quick edits and full of conversation and nonstop action. But when things slow down for a minute, I love that. I love it when things slow down enough for you to kind of reflect on what's happening and think about what's been shown to you and why and how you would react in these situations. I love these, what some people might think of as slow moments where nothing happens. Those are my favorite.
And the show starts that way. That's the vibe from the get-go. Yeah, it's really cool.
I immediately was in love with part of why I like the book so much too. And the show did it perfectly. It's immediately, this is for me.
All right, Shay, what about you?
Okay, my answer is Lionel Baratheon and the dancing scene. I do like dancing scenes in TV and movies in general, and I like the way it was filmed, and they get into that in the making of, the kind of shutter speeds they use and the style of film work they use to give it this kind of almost like drugged kind of atmosphere, like, you know, debauched, hedonistic. Like it really felt like a party. In other extras, behind the scenes stuff, they talked about how they wanted to give it a Burning Man or Glastonbury type feel, being at the camps, at the tourney, and I really felt that, not just in that scene, but when Dunk was walking around, seeing the puppetry performance or really just mummery performance. So I felt that vibe a lot. I felt it most in that scene. I liked the way that they expanded Lionel and the kind of foreshadowing they set for an eventual conflict. I think viewers are going to really be into whether you want to call it a bromance or a romance. A lot of people are going to like Dunk and Lionel Baratheon together. I think they got really good chemistry, and they have a lot to work with there. And it's as we know as readers, it's not going to end up great in the long term for Dunk or anyone really, I guess. Yeah, I'm gonna say Lionel. I liked Dunk's awkward dancing as well. So like, it wasn't just about Lionel, but it was about seeing Dunk in this environment, I suppose.
Yeah, putting them together was a big thing. One really funny moment that some of y'all might have missed from Lionel was when he says, "I don't know, I'm really quite drunk," and then he grabs his horns or his antlers and walks away. His antlers brush up on the chandelier, and he apologizes to it.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. It's so funny.
Not only did I notice that, but I can't tell you how much time I spent thinking about that. My mind is constantly just thinking about the nature of film production. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wondered how much of that was specifically written out in the script. You know, sometimes that type of detail isn't there, and it's a director's decision at the moment of filming. But sometimes that type of detail is there, and I want so bad to know if that was in the script, if the director made that decision, or if the actor did that and they ran with it. I love that scene in a million ways. I'm glad you brought that up.
I would also say my other favorite scene was a similar conglomerate of scenes. All the flashbacks, just having for me, there's like an editing effect to that I really like in not just A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but there's countless shows and movies where I love a quick cut. I love a quick flashback style cut. I love using editing for humor to that effect. And so they really, right off the bat, I was very sold on the type of humor that they were going for.
Right on.
I want to say about that too, Ashaya. I constantly, I'd say largely because of you, try to champion editors. That's a really good example there of how it was used to tell the story. It wasn't just deciding when to cut back and forth and maintain a continuity, which in and of itself is enough of a skill and a challenge. But that was very specific storytelling through editing that was done great, that editors don't get enough credit for us.
Yeah, like cutting back to Arlen just not saying anything and just spitting.
That was hilarious.
Like that's such a good beat. It's so funny and it says so much and it has such implication. And so just the way that they're doing flashbacks is my other answer for favorite scene, and that'll probably continue going forward.
I think you're right. I think we have a lot to look forward to there. As we'll discuss on Friday, it looks like there's an extended flashback scene rather than with the possibility of more quick cuts. So that's exciting. And that next episode is called Hard Salt Beef, apparently. This one was called The Hedge Knight. This could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship, y'all. Let's enjoy ourselves and have a great season. If I could get on my soapbox for a few seconds here, don't let anyone else's criticism of the show affect your love of it. Enjoy it on your own with your friends, and don't let anyone else make decisions for you on how much you like it. Once again, I want to remind you all to help us out with the World Science Fiction Society. Join by January 31st and nominate us for Best Related Work. History of Westeros episode, Ragnarok versus the Long Night. You get a lot for your membership. Every book on the ballot, which means all the book things nominated for best book. Like right there, that's worth the $50. Plus you get art and the nominating and voting, and hopefully you join us at Worldcon itself in 2026 in Anaheim.
Yeah, you definitely get more than $50 of value of media, of books and stuff like that. Absolutely, you get more than $50 worth of books. And then you also, again, could upgrade your membership, and you're supporting History of Westeros. So we would really appreciate it. I put the link in the description and in the chat. Thank you.
Our trivia question. The question was, Sir Arlen fought for Sir Manfred Dondarrion's father against what foe? The Vulture King is the answer. The Vulture King. And Sir...
I knew it.
And he took a crossbow bolt. That was quite clearly what that was. Our poll. The poll was, who was the favorite non-Dunk and Egg performance? I almost wish I had put Lionel up against Dunk and Egg because it would have been more of a contest. Plumber got 4%. The 4 sex workers, Red, Beone, Daisy, and Leah the Lovely, got 8%. Raymond and Stefan Fossaway also got 8%. Lionel Baratheon got 80%. So, yeah, not so close there, but
feels good to be in the majority for once. So often I'm not, but I'm like, you know what? I get it. I get why y'all love him.
So once again, y'all tune into us on Friday at 5:30 for our preview episode. Most Fridays we'll probably have that. We're going to play that by ear based on what there is to discuss or isn't.
Yeah, this first week we had the whole season to come preview. There's so much to talk about. We're like, let's not cram it into the end of this episode. Let's just, do a Friday stream for y'all. What time is that, Aziz?
5:30.
5:30.
Yeah.
Your game stream will be not at all.
It'll be at 6. So it'll be
a half-hour stream?
No, we'll just be a little late. It's fine. The game stream will start when this is over.
Okay.
So we have also, folks, if you want to listen to some other stuff in the meantime, we have our Hedge Knight 5-part series that is going to be reposted to our video feed, to our Spotify feed and iTunes feeds, all podcast feeds. You'll see that reappear at the top starting this next Thursday. We also have a 2-part episode on Baelor Breakspear. And that's also out there for y'all if you want to check that out. And of course, we have a long series on the Blackfire Rebellions. Thanks to Bran for our lovely video intro. And guess what, y'all? We're getting a new video intro from him, all Dunk and Egg style, starting next time. And it looks really cool. It's not quite done, but it will be by then. And we're very excited to show it to you.
Yeah, and there are puppets in it.
Thanks to Sean and Ashea for all their great commentary. We will see you all again soon. This is going to be a lot of fun. And you know what to do in the meantime. Valar Rereus.